Hi, everybody. We're just going to give a couple minutes to make sure everyone can join here. Probably about 3 minutes here. Actually, it looks like we had a bunch of people join last minute here, so we're just actually going to get started. Welcome to part one of our holiday prep series. We're going to be discussing inventory for the holiday rush and how to optimize it. I'm Marissa, the Associate Director of Content here at Feedvisor, and we have our Amazon expert, Ken Pizzali, who's been in the e-commerce industry with a decade of experience in Amazon. He's one of our more senior employees here at Feedvisor. He's a veteran of 6 years with us, which is amazing. So Ken, you want to say hello?
How you doing? Nice to meet everybody or see everybody, or not really.
Yes. So a brief overview of Feedvisor, just so you know, for those of you who do not know us, we are the AI first optimization and intelligence platform for sellers, private labels, and brands on Amazon, Walmart, and other e-marketplaces. We're actually one of the first that used AI, and we leverage data intelligence and automated actions in our platform, which helps you to deliver success from every e-commerce touchpoint, specifically from price optimization to advertising campaign efficiency and inventory health. We offer you guys a business driving clarity and control for every need. So, to get into it for our agenda for today, we are going to be discussing the importance of inventory optimization for the holidays, which, yes, may be a no-brainer, but we'll get to that. There's an understanding of the holiday demand this year, some strategic inventory planning and how to do so, key deadlines for the major platforms, and how to actually leverage technology for inventory management. And we'll leave some time at the end for some questions, but please feel free to put them in the chat. We'll have that enabled for you. So to get right into it, why is inventory optimization important for the holidays? Obviously, this seems like a no-brainer, but the holidays are still the biggest sales opportunity for brands and sellers. And actually, this year, holiday e-commerce sales are predicted to break records, reaching 271.58 billion, which is a 9.5% increase from 2023. And it's actually been unheard of since 2021 with the pre-pandemic property. So, Ken, how does inventory play a role in this holiday?
Well, obviously, the more you stock out, the more you miss out on sales and opportunities, right? So, it's obviously important to try to keep those stock levels up as high as possible. Another side effect of stocking out is, if you're a buy box competitive seller, Amazon actually their algorithm will hurt your sales for your specific competitive ASINs and actually give you less buy box share. So, it's really important to keep everything in stock as much as possible. It's obviously important time of the year as buyers are buying gifts for other people. If it takes them a longer time to get their inventory, they can be dissatisfied, give you bad reviews. You want to avoid that. And then, it's also an excellent time during these busy seasons to get rid of maybe some older inventory, dead stock, discontinued items from previous seasons. So it's also can be useful for that as well.
And I imagine fees are the buzzword on everyone's mind here. So fees are probably an important factor in inventory management as well.
Oh yes, fees. Obviously, Amazon has made a lot of changes recently regarding their fees. So, an increased demand during the holidays equals more risk and high likelihood of potentially getting fees. So, one of the things that you want to do is avoid dead stock and aged inventories, because it's likely to sit in Amazon's warehouse and your fees just accumulate over time. So, it's a lot of ways to get around that. We'll get into that later.
Well, there seems like there's tons of factors at play here. So how can brands and merchants actually properly prepare for the holidays this season?
Well, they want to use past sales data to forecast holiday demand and look at the products that sold, the amount of sales they had, and how long you're running the sales for.
So what's the proper way to use this data then, if we're looking at it from this point of view?
So, I mean, obviously, you're looking at historical data, but it's important not to look too far back. We're all aware Amazon's a constantly changing landscape. Sellers are always making changes to the listings. So, if you're looking back at 2 to 3 years, I think that at that point, that data is pretty much irrelevant. What we're seeing, obviously the most recent yet data have like from the previous year should be weighed the most or the heaviest. Another thing that we're seeing with a lot of customers that I work with is they try to bundle or pack items together to try to get out of that competitive landscape and try to, create more control over their price, right? By getting into their own private ASINs. So, that has another impact on demand as well.
And I'm guessing forecasting is incredibly hard to demand. So this is actually just looking at the past. What about accounting for all the changes that we're seeing in the present here that's happening right now?
So you need to have an awareness of current trends and consumer behavior to forecast correctly. For instance, inflationary pressures haven't really let up yet, and it leaves consumers with kind of mixed feelings around spending versus saving when they're heading into the holiday season. So 40%, 41% intend to splurge on gifts while tightening elsewhere. And on the other side, 46% of people say they really need to spend less on holiday gifts this year. But consumers still do continue to buy, but they're just spending less money when they're buying. That's all. So nearly, sorry.
Over half of consumers are holding out for those big purchases on Black Friday, it seems like. So, what can we say about their changing the holiday shopping behaviors?
Nearly 80% of consumers are reporting changing their holiday shopping behaviors to trade down, meaning buy a used item, maybe an item that they really want with like less features, that's a little bit cheaper or easier for them to afford. Some customers are buying refurbished items instead of buying new items. So it's, the refurbished items still have the same return policy. So it's just a good way for them to save some money. Also, sellers can resell items that are pretty much brand new as used once they're returned. And that's just the trends we're seeing. There's multiple factors at play, including, I think it's the next slide, please. Yep. There is multiple things that are in play here, right? So a lot of growth in the Chinese marketplaces. They're continuing to put pressure or actually try to chase Amazon's market share. Actually, 2/3 of global shoppers report that prices dictate where they're going to choose to shop, with less than 1/3 prioritizing quality of the goods. 63% of Western consumers plan to purchase from Chinese shopping applications for the holidays. It's a presidential election year, which is always historically causes a little dip in consumer spending due to the heightened anxiety. No one knows, what's gonna happen. And to mitigate that impact, marketers should probably launch their holiday campaigns earlier than usual, well before the election commotion starts. The earlier they start, this allows, the initial consumer reactions to be measured and offered, adjusted as needed. Also, we have a shortened holiday season as well. 2024 holiday season is only going to be 27 days between Thanksgiving and Christmas. The last time the holiday season was this short was in 2019, when marketers compensated by starting their holiday campaigns very early. They were also most likely to there's also most likely to be an Amazon kickoff event in October. They've had an event in the last 2 years, so they're probably going to have another one this year, even though they haven't announced anything yet.
That seems like a lot for everyone to try to figure out. So, given all these factors, trends, and just everything going on, how can you strategically plan your inventory this year?
Well, you need to have a detailed look into the cost and the capacity needed to store and move your volume of products, including fees such as inbound placement fees, right? That's also a lot of changes going on there. You got to look at buying trends from last year. What categories or attributes sold well during the same time last year? You want to pay attention to trends from non-seasonal sales this year. So what new trends can you incorporate into your holiday merchandising? Risk tolerance. Consider your risk tolerance as it relates to stockouts and running out of inventory. If maintaining stock levels is crucial to your value prop, then you may overstock to buffer against supply chain disruptions. If managing cash flow is more important, consider the opportunity cost of lost sales due to stockouts versus cashing out elsewhere in your business. So balancing these priorities can help you decide whether to prioritize inventory or cash flow.
Okay.
Most sellers will prioritize inventory based on their anticipated best sellers, and potentially cut back on items that may not be as popular to more effectively utilize their cash flow. Obviously, you want to have enough inventory in stock, so stock cover. Um, this is the length of time that your current inventory will last based on the sales velocity for that item. So, for example, consider how long it will take to sell $10,000 worth of inventory for $20,000. Whether it's 7, 30, or 90 days, the longer the turnover, the higher the opportunity cost. So evaluate if there's a faster selling product that could potentially yield the same result more quickly.
So once you take into account these key considerations for your optimal inventory levels, what else can you do?
Well, you want to use data analytics and forecasting models to predict demand. So getting an accurate projection of your holiday order volume requires forecasting. Use a combination of demand forecasting along with sales forecasting. Consider any trends in the market and how they might affect demand. For example, self-care and wellness items are trending more than they have in the past. Before you begin forecasting, determine which ASINs you want to sell by looking at past sales and storage fees. If there's a mediocre product that has high storage fees, you're probably going to try to liquidate it instead of promote it. To figure out what inventory you should have on hand, start with a forecast of future sales in the coming 30, 60, or 90 days, which are probably based on past sales and velocities of seasonality and products, of seasonality of those products. For an accurate forecast, consider your sales velocity, which is number of units sold per day. It's also, when you're looking at the velocity, it's important to understand, only look at sales per day while in stock, right? Days they're not in stock, you don't want to count that in your calculation because that doesn't give you a true understanding of the demand of the products, right? So in addition to sales velocity, there's seasonality, which will inform the emphasis for past sales, like how much weight should you put into this, and then also sales trends. If things are, demand is steady or increasing in recent months. So what are we trending towards?
So that seems like a lot of metrics to try to keep track of. And you know what? Our replenishment report makes it super easy to find all this data. So I'm just actually going to quickly show everybody because I think this is amazing. And Ken, I would love if you can just give us a quick walkthrough and let me know. Here we go. We've got our replenishment report up here. See all this data. Want to walk us through some of these metrics?
Yeah, for sure. So this is one of our more popular reports that Feedvisor offers. We actually have some customers that run their entire business using this report. So it gives you a breakdown of all the items that you're selling on Amazon. And you have tons of trending information in here, right? So we're going to give you your current inventory levels, all different categories of inventory, right? What's fulfillable, what's inbound, even if you have your own warehouse, right? How much do you have in your warehouse in addition to what Amazon knows about? And then we give you all of the trending information. So, your velocity last 7, 30, 60, 90 days, your velocity change, which is, I believe, 7 versus 30 days. So how is it trending? Is the price trending up or down? There's a metric here. If you are using Feedvisor to price it, are you at your floor, at your ceiling? Are you in range to help make recommendations? And then obviously, we're going to give you, if you're competing for buy box, you'll have Amazon's buy box share. So, obviously if Amazon's taking a higher percentage, right, it's probably, you want to order a little bit less of that. Traditionally, Amazon's a very strong seller, right? You don't like to compete against them when possible. So that would be an indicator to maybe order a little bit less of those items. And then, once again, trending data, sales data, profit margin data, and then average price changes as well. So if you scroll all the way to the right, we also have some really good recommendations, right? So not only we're breaking this up by vendor, we're breaking it up by brand to make it easily sortable. And then you could put in your desired days of coverage. And then we'll do the math for you and say, all right, if you want to maintain, let's just say 50 days of coverage, right? We're going to recommend, the number of items to order. Now, this calculation doesn't always fully consider the previous year's holiday season, right? This is just looking at the last 30, 60, 90 days. So you would probably look at this number and kind of make a guesstimate of whether or not it should be above or below when you're looking at your last year's sales status during the holiday season.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ken. And I go back. And so when you are keeping your inventory in mind here, I'm assuming you have to talk with your supplier here. So what kind of tips can you give us for the lead times and supplier coordination?
So obviously you need to work closely with your suppliers to ensure that the delivery is timely. You want to touch base with your vendors, make sure that you're all on the same page and what inventory you're going to need. Are pre-sale, maybe early order discounts available? Maybe you can, get a better deal that way. Are there going to be changes to lead time? Do they anticipate any sort of production delays or back order edition items, or you want to identify those items if possible? Will there be changes to shipping times when the holidays get closer and things are really busy? Do they have holiday shutdown dates, right? Are they open on Black Friday or between Christmas and New Year's? What's their holiday, schedule like? And also, do they offer expedited shipping if for some reason you have an item that's selling out quicker than expected, right? Can you order more last minute, right? These are all good things to know beforehand. Um, and then obviously, you want to increase that lead time and days of stock as needed. So consider if you need to alter your days of stock. For example, if you typically plan to have 14 days of stock on hand, but you want to place an order to last 45 days during the holidays, you'll need to alter your forecast.
All right, so now we've got some week by week inventory milestones that we're going to make sure you have on handy here. So the 8 weeks before the holidays, make sure you are finalizing inventory forecast and placing those initial orders. That's where looking at that data will really come in helpful. Then 6 weeks before the holidays, you're going to review those inventory levels, make sure that everything is where you want it to be and adjust them if necessary, because you're still having sales before the holidays. And then there's 4 weeks before the holidays, you're going to do that second inventory review and finalize those replenishments. 2 weeks before the holidays, you're going to make sure all your inventory is received and it's ready for sale. And then we do have some inventory deadlines here for the key platforms. So for Amazon, October 19th is the deadline for inventory submissions. This is earlier this year, as last year it was a week later. And then for the annual holiday peak fulfillment fee, that actually starts October 15th and will go all the way to January 14th. So keep that in mind when you're setting your sale prices. Walmart, we recommend that you send your inventory in concurrent with Amazon's and any other platform that you're on. Just make sure that you're fully covered on everywhere they're selling. And we do have some tips here for complying with Amazon's inventory recommendations here. Ken, do you want to discuss some of these?
Yes, I think the one of the most important points or important takeaways is Amazon, requires sellers to disclose their inventory sources very commonly, and a big, I would say, um, obstacle that some customers run into is they don't have their paperwork in order, right? So you always want to make sure that you have all of your product authenticity papers in order, right? It's keep in mind that a receipt is not always equal to an invoice, right? So when I've worked with a bunch of customers, the last time of the year, the last thing you want to do is get shut down during the busy time of the season, right? So make sure you have all your authenticity papers in order and ready to provide to Amazon should they request it. You should also take some proactive steps to verify the authenticity of the vendor's products, right?
Yeah.
So this includes using the manufacturer's UPC code when listing the products, especially in categories like watches, where authenticity is extremely important. Um, Confirm trustworthiness by providing Amazon with inventory source verification. Test products such as pre-owned watches for accuracy and water resistance. Obtain brand approval when connected to specific brands to ensure legitimacy. Ensure that products sold on Amazon meet the platform's conditional requirements. Very important, especially for categories such as the ones that have prohibitive ingredients like vitamins. Make sure that the vitamins don't contain any sort of ingredients that Amazon doesn't allow you to send. This is to try to maintain customer trust and here's safety and hygiene standards, right, to comply with Amazon's requirements.
So this is a ton of information for sellers and brands to keep track of. How can they make this an easier process during the most stressful time of the year?
Well, I think Feedvisor has a nice dashboard that can kind of help you with managing your inventory and kind of let me share my screen out here. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, thank you.
All right. So obviously, we give a lot of data regarding, sales history, profit history, but more importantly around inventory for every single SKU, we're going to show you a full detailed view of the current inventory levels, right? We're going to give you an estimated days remaining of stock, tell you how many is fillable, how many are reserved, right? But more importantly, we can automate the pricing and help you ensure that you're avoiding those fees and making the most amount of money possible when selling, right? So specifically around inventory, Feedvisor has what's called an inventory aware pricing strategy, right? So when basically your FBA inventory gets into an excess state, we will automatically, and this is configurable by SKU, by the way, we can automatically set up these SKUs to take certain actions. So if the FBA inventory is considered an excess, you can potentially, maybe for an item you don't care, you're okay just leaving it in excess. Maybe it'll last the next year, or perhaps you want to accelerate sales. So you want to be more aggressive in your pricing and your advertising, right? So you can tell the system, hey, once this reaches an excess inventory state, accelerate the sales for this item, right? On the converse side or the other side, if it's low stock, right? If an item reaches low stock, you have a couple of different options. Do you want to basically, once again, ignore it? Do you want to set the price to the ceiling, which should essentially just stop the sales? You can maybe just slow down your sales. So maybe be a little bit, push the prices up more frequently, try our higher price points to try to slow down your sales, which obviously in turn increases your margins, right? It also helps reserve that inventory level. And then obviously the other end of that spectrum is, hey, if you're running low, instead of it sitting there and me accumulating more fees, why don't we just liquidate it and get rid of it, right? That also obviously reduces your fees. Another cool feature that we have that I think is really specific to Feedvisor is you don't need to wait for your inventory. And we have a report here that shows you, and I'll show you. It will show you all your items that are in excess or all your items that are in low stock. We also have the ability to show you proactively which items are trending towards those states before they even get there. So we can proactively take action before you accumulate any fees, right? So we have the ability to say, hey, if you're trending to excess within 90 days of inventory, right? Let's take those excess inventory actions beforehand, right? Same thing, trending towards low stock. So once again, at the SKU level, you can actually say, hey, I want to do this when it's in this state or if it's trending towards this state. So we have all these tools available to you to help you reduce your fees and potentially make you more money.
Wow, that's great. Thank you, Ken. This is super informative. And guys, just so you know, we do have a 14-day free trial. So if you did want to test this out, it's free for 14 days. There's no credit card required. It doesn't hurt. Now's the time to test this. So I did want to say thank you, Ken. We're going to take a look at some questions from the audience here. First, just want to let you guys know that this is part 1 of our webinar series, and there are 2 more sessions we'll be having. The second one will be crafting and winning ad campaigns for the holidays, which will be in September. We'll be sending out invitations for this. And then the third one is actually on pricing strategies to maximize your holiday sales. We also have our inventory optimization guide, which includes how to mitigate and avoid some of those inventory fees, which you can feel free to download here. And let's see some questions that came through. All right, the first one. Is there any way to repurpose some returned inventory? And how can we turn used inventory into an advantage? Sorry, it's a two-parter, Ken.
Okay, that's a good question. So, I mean, depending on the category, right? Clothes being the primary exception, most of the time when items are returned to Amazon, they typically don't allow you to resell them as new. So a good strategy is, relist it on Amazon in that used state, and an actual like a side effect potential benefit for you if you're selling map items. A lot of vendors aren't. Um, I would say as aggressive as it enforcing those map policies when items used, right? So you can potentially still make some money off it while it's used, and maybe potentially sell it pretty easily, being able to sell it below map because once again, it's not new condition, it's used condition.
Okay. And what specific data points are most valuable when forecasting holiday demand year over year? They, yeah, that seems like it's pretty informative here. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'd say, we spoke about a lot of the specific data points that are most valuable. Obviously, year-over-year sales is really important. Specifically, right, performance during the previous holiday season is probably the best indicator you have. Also, potentially looking at the competitive landscape if you can, figure that out, right? So you want to do some research into your category and items that you're selling to determine how many other sellers are selling those same exact items or similar items, and maybe year over year, is there more or less people in that area, right? Help
Mhm.
you get a better idea of reading between the lines of how you should forecast.
All right. And our next question up here is, how do you adjust your forecasting models to account for new products that don't have historical sales data? That's a tricky one.
Yeah, I mean, so if you have no sales data to look at, you're kind of, guessing or trying to make it as best of an educated guess as possible. I would say maybe looking at your sales ranking, right? Has your sales ranking been trending up or trending down? Even if, typically the better your sales ranking are, the more sales you're going to have. I mean, potentially try to do some research into, a specific sales ranking for a category for even a different product can give you an understanding of what to expect for sales of your product, right? So I would say sales ranking would probably be a good data point to look at if there's no sales history to look at.
All right. And we just have two more questions here. So we'll be wrapping up shortly. But what specific KPIs should be monitored daily during the holiday season to ensure inventory health and avoid those fees?
Well, I mean, preferably you're using a tool, an automated tool like Feedvisor that kind of does that for you, right? But I'd say manually, if you're looking at things, would definitely be like estimated days remaining in stock, right? If you see an item that's maybe running out quicker than anticipated, you go back to your vendors and try to do an emergency order to get more, right? Because it's exceeding expectations. And then, obviously, if things are trending slower than anticipated, you know, that estimated days of stock becomes too long, and you want to kind of be more aggressive in your pricing or advertising strategy to kind of push the inventory along.
All right. And last question here. And I know we already touched on this briefly, but how should I prepare for Amazon's increased scrutiny on inventory sources, especially during the holiday season?
Um, Definitely, I would say don't switch suppliers during the holiday season. Stay with what you know. You have a relationship with certain vendors, how to do business with them. And I would just leave, don't make any significant changes there. Also, just to mention this again, I know I mentioned it before, though, it's very important. Uh, Invoices versus receipts, right? Make sure you have your invoices lined up in case someone does challenge the authenticity of your items, right? You want to make sure that you avoid the being shut down at all costs.
Yeah, that's great advice. So, again, guys, thank you so much for attending. If you have any questions that we didn't get to, please feel free to send them our way at info@feedvisor.com. And again, we had that lovely guide up there that you could download. We'll be able to send that as well. And look out in your emails for invitations to the next two webinars and also the recording of this one in case you had to drop early. So thank you so much, and we hope to hear from you guys again soon. Bye, everybody.